Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Latte on Cloud Cost, the podcast that guides you through the complex world of cloud cost optimization. I'm your host, Praneet Chandra, and every 2 weeks, we deep dive into strategies, tools, and best practices that helps FinOps professional engineering leaders and DevOps teams navigate through financial aspects of cloud computing. In today's episode, our guest who is at helm of cloud, right? Back in front end, everything, right? Please welcome Kartik Gupta, right? Kartik is engineering and product leader at the Spyne, sitting at intersection of AI, engineering, and product. And as an ex-founder, right, he brings in a lot of grit and objectivity to approaching real-world problems. And just for the folks who don't know about Spyne is helping car dealerships or companies create high-quality broad visuals at a scale with AI. Welcome, Kartik. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Praneet. Thanks for the kind intro. How are you doing?
I'm doing great and great to have you. Thank you for coming as a guest on the show. All right. So, just for everyone's information and for you as well, Karthik, the way how we'll run it, we have got a couple of burning questions that we keep hearing from engineering leaders, CTOs, and DevOps professionals, right? And FinOps as well.
Mhm.
So we will try to answer them, right? We are looking for your point of view. You've got depth and breadth both in terms of this knowledge in this space. And then we'll also have some fun segment, right? Like I would ask you to confess few things and probably a rapid fire round, right? So things
Mhm.
around that, we'll keep it light. And as usual for our guests listening today, yes, the goal is at the end of the day is to bring you more and more voices in this space so that you can understand how cloud cost optimization actually takes place in real world and what's the impact of it. So with that, Karthik, I have my very first question for you is, right, I see Spyne. First of all, congratulations for your latest fundraise. It was amazing,
Thank you.
right, to read through it all, right. Spyne is heavily AI driven with image processing and computer vision at its core, right. And when I think about image processing or computer vision, the first thing that comes to my mind is machine learning models, GPU intensive operations. So how do you approach your cost optimization differently when your primary workloads are not CPU intensive, but more GPU and ML models as such? So how do you do that thing at Spyne?
Got it. So, Praneet, I think the basics remain the same, right? In any engineering sort of task, you have to make sure that your used resources are not too high. You have to make sure that you're stingy in assigning the resources. You have to always keep checking whether there is a better alternative available. Try and self-manage as much as possible, right? And in the world of GPUs, this becomes even more important because every single instance that you add up, right? Every single GPU that we add up directly takes away about $700 to $1,000. So making sure that you're always stingy and getting those basics right actually becomes quite important. So we keep a very strong sort of cadence on when a new GPU has to be launched, when a new service has to be launched, which requires GPU. The way we scale our GPUs is different than what we scale our CPUs, right? So CPUs mostly are on a resource-based scaling, whereas in GPUs we try and queue as much as possible so that we can average out the loads throughout the day, right? So we do some of that stuff, and I'm sure a lot of the other companies who are using GPUs and machine learning also try and average the load out.
What I'm also hearing is, yes, the scaling of CPU and GPU is different, right? So obviously
Mhm.
your scaling challenges would be different, your cost challenges would be different. So how do you find, like, I'm pretty sure with tons of experience on behind you, right? How do you see like these challenges are different now at a Spyne, right? Like, what is that difference between CPU and GPU when you choose that I should be running optimized? Like, I know we don't want to compromise on performance, but also want to keep that lower cost because $700,000 per GPU per day is not a great thing, right? So, what are those unique challenges that you face as a company?
Yeah. So I think the basic difference is when you try and actually scale up a CPU, you can spawn that up in a second, right? Whereas our GPUs are typically loaded with a lot of models, and spinning up a new GPU can take significant amount of time in the traditional manners that we do. So earlier, scaling up a new GPU for us used to take about 15-20 odd minutes, and our entire scaling up architecture was based on that constraint that we had. As to a new GPU to come up would take about that much time, right? So you could not do a resource-based scaling in that case. What we've been able to do is bring that time down by doing some innovation. We've been using warm pools, etc., and we keep trying to sort of bring that scaling up time down, right? The time that we are able to spawn up a new GPU, provision it, launch it, get the models ready to be actually utilized, right? And a lot of our sort of recent DevOps research bandwidth has also gone into this progress requirement. We've been trying to experiment with Kubernetes and certain other technologies, right? So that, and this sort of becomes the gold standard. Like if you're able to bring that GPU scaling time down from those 10-15 minutes to about 5 seconds, then you can actually just launch a GPU for a minute, complete your load, and bring it down. But if you're taking about 10 minutes to bring up a GPU, you can't just put it up for a minute and then bring it down, because then you're paying the cost for 16 minutes and not just 1 minute, right? So orchestrating your entire engineering ecosystem, how you queue your request, how you manage those requests, how do you manage sort of failures, retries, etc. Right? So
Yeah.
so that becomes sort of critical in this ecosystem.
Got it. And you mentioned something about warm pool of GPUs, right? Is it something that you maintain, or AWS or your cloud provider provides it to you?
So as I said, like in the basics as well, we try and self-manage as much as possible. We do use AWS for most of our sort of cloud management, but we still manage it ourselves. So we don't end up using a lot of the managed solutions from AWS with this, because this gives us a lot more flexibility in how we want to sort of scale our systems up. Of course, it also helps keep the costs down, right?
Yeah.
Because self-hosted solutions are always cheaper than managed solutions, is what we've seen.
Great. So what I'm hearing is self-hosted solutions are cheaper than managed hosted solution. Using bare bones kind of a structure gives you a lot more flexibility, a lot more embedded into your architecture, and that helps you manage that performance versus cost kind of trade-off easily, if I'm correct. Oh, great. Yeah. No, that's very interesting, right? And that brings me to a question, right? When you try to do this, right, obviously a major question that might come up from engineering, right? Hey, when AWS is giving a managed service, why are we spending so much effort on it, right? Why are we spending so much? So how do you bring that awareness into a team about like costs, right? There's a cost implication, there's a performance implication. How do you think about that? How do you tell your army of engineers, as I like to call it, right? Like, hey, you have to understand these constraints. It's not always about using a managed service. It's great while you are at early stage, but once you are at a scale, I think it becomes different and difficult. So how do you bring that whole leadership around like cost and performance as a basis of your DNA, right? What are your approaches to that?
So I think what was critical here for us was to build a solid DevOps team to start. Somebody who can actually abstract a lot of these challenges and tell the engineering folks that, hey, you don't really need to worry about it. We will take care. We will manage your services, right? So for a lot of the teams, it is still looking like a managed service internally, but those challenges and that cost sort of ownership is centralized within DevOps, and that becomes critical for us. Of course, every service owner, every product owner is still required to sort of own up their cost, work closely with DevOps, but that know-how being centralized really helps.
Right. So what I'm hearing is the ownership remains with DevOps team in terms of how this infrastructure is exposed to the rest of the organization, and they act like a managed service. So can I also imply this cost ownership also belongs to DevOps team, or is it still distributed between teams? Like, how do you do that cost distribution then?
So it's a dual structure. I mean, of
Okay.
course, there is a single owner of cost, which is DevOps. So if I were to sort of go and ask the question and say who is the single owner of cost of sort of cloud cost in the company, that would roll up to the DevOps team. But at the same time, also ensuring that you're creating the right architecture is critical for cost. So we also tagged our costs quite effectively so that every single service owner, every single product owner is able to see those costs and are also responsible for those costs, right? So it does become a joint responsibility. Our DevOps team looks at it horizontally at the entire cost, and then every single team also looks at their own costs.
Great. And that is brilliant, because last week I was giving a talk, right? And I was telling this exact thing, right? If you can really break down your cost by feature, break down the cost by team owners and everything, that might even become simplified on how people are looking at cost, right? Because if you tell somebody to save a cost I think the first thing that goes to us as an engineer is like, let's re-architect something, right? But that might not be the most optimum way of doing optimizations as such. So in this case, the dual structure that you're running, like DevOps being horizontal and then team slices individual or vertical as such, that makes sense. So when you do tagging, you told me you do tagging based on the owner, the prod team owners and everything.
Correct.
Do you also do it by features, right? Like I have a question on it, right? If there's a logging service or there's a login service or authentication service, right? Everyone uses it, right? But to double down on a single owner for it becomes very difficult, right? So how do you
Correct.
run that shared cost structure in that fashion, right? Like,
Got
do
it.
you have any principles, anything set up as such? Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, there are essentially two type of sort of teams, right? In any organization, there is always going to be a platform horizontal team, which internally is serving all other teams, right? So
Correct.
as you rightly mentioned, your user login, your core platforms, the core front end containers that you're running, all of that is sort of tagged as a central team, and then apportioned by revenue or by cost, depending on the type of cost that we're talking about, and then every single team. So for example, we do images as a product, we do 360 as a product, we do video explainers as a product, right? So each of these business verticals have separate engineering and product teams, and they also have tagging at that level. So a product owner, right, a product and a business owner is able to look at their revenues. At the same time, they're also able to look at their cloud cost specifically for that business vertical. So this
Got it.
really helps us also define margins. It's a good feedback mechanism into pricing as well, right? And that really helps the business.
Got it. And then what is the approach that you take, right? So let's say I have a great software engineering team. I'm pretty sure all of us have it,
Mhm.
right? That's why we are all here, right? But how do you make developers or engineers on our team think like a owner, right? At the end of the day, hey, do we like a big question that comes, right? And this is forever with me, right? I keep on talking to a lot of engineering leaders, right? And they keep on telling, yes, but to convert a engineer into a cost owner is a very difficult job. So I would like to understand, have you discovered any patterns, something that worked for you, something that failed for you, anything on those areas?
Sure. So internally, this is what we call a TVC model, right? Transparency, visibility, and communication. So transparency essentially is created by doing the right tagging, right? So that in the first place, if somebody wants to go in and look at cost by team, they have that data available. So that's the first step.
Yeah.
You have to make sure that the right data is available into your cost explorers, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And actually, Cloudkeeper does a great job for that. The second is visibility. So once you've actually created that transparency, you ensure that there is sort of tagging happening. That's not enough. You also need to publish it regularly and make sure that your teams are looking at it. Right.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is communication, where you sort of reiterate again and again in your discussions with the team leads, etc., that they are the cost owners. They need to look at it, asking those questions, having those feedback loops, having those reviews, right? So basic stuff that needs to be done, right? Right. There's no rocket science to it, but a lot of common sense that needs to be done in day out.
Got it. I think I'll be very honest at this point of time. I've not seen such a good level of abstraction and a clear definition, right? And this is experience of talking to a lot of engineering leaders, right? Everything. So I think this entire TVC model, folks, it is up there for your seal, right? And if you have got more information, yes, I will tag Kartik on LinkedIn post. You should ask him. But I think this whole model around like transparency, visibility, and everything, right, is very effective. And I think potentially, Karthik, we should collaborate and write a blog on it, right? Probably
Absolutely.
this serves as a great case study because this is a common problem I see day in and day out where we try to figure out, okay, how do I get engineers to act like a owner? And it's difficult, right? And I understand. Great. So let's shift a little bit of gear, all right, and talk about some unit economics and FinOps, right? Now, you are a B2B SaaS, right? That's your business model, right? Number of images, number of vehicles processed, you charge as such. How do you connect your customer cost, right, to your cloud cost? Or even you should do that or not? I don't know, right? Like, this is a weird thought in my head that, okay, when we try to figure out customer profitability, we always think of gross margin and then we average it out and then makes it very simple. Yeah, SaaS business is very lucrative, 70% gross margins. But so much of AI coming into picture, And I've been talking to someone that just told me their gross margin is reduced all the way down to 20-25%, right? And majority of it is basically your cloud spend, right? Against ML, against AI models, against the different LM models they are using as such. So first of all, does Spyne actually do that, right? Do you attribute your customer cost to the cloud cost or the customer in order to figure out? And if yes, how do you do that?
Got it. So in a SaaS business, I think there are a couple of things that contribute to your cost of goods, right? The basic gross margins that you talk about, and cloud costs are a very important aspect of that, right? So you should absolutely be looking at it. Any SaaS company needs to look at it, especially any SaaS company who's working in this AI domain. It's imperative to look at it. As you rightly pointed out, if you stop looking at it, I think it can easily spiral up and sort of erode your margins, right? So from a 70-80% margin, it's easy to come down to a 20% margin if you don't have very clear sort of visibility and accountability on it. So of course that answer is yes. But then how do we do it, right? So as I pointed out, of course we look at it at a company level and we keep tracking that. But then we also keep taking a lot of new bets, right? So there's a images product that has been sort of our bread and butter for quite some time. That works on a different margin structure right now. There are certain new products where we're still trying to create the best in class experience right now. And a lot of the optimization is still pending. So that works on a different margin. And that's why it's important to look at each product in their own isolation and margin structure. Right? So that really helps. Of course, this information is also used by our sales and CS teams to ensure that the customers are profitable, take decisions. This becomes extremely handy when you have a very large customer coming in, right? And you need to give a deeper discount. So ensuring that you know your cloud cost and your per unit cost is critical in that scenario where you're also sort of trying to sort of customize the plans for those large customers. Right? Yeah. And the other thing that it also helps is, let's say if I'm selling a certain product and I expect a certain margin to be there, but then I start getting pushback from the market that this price doesn't work out, then it also becomes a clear signal to my engineering team that, hey, you guys need to work on optimizing this cost. This becomes unsustainable, right? So it's a two-way sort of street that opens up when you start doing this effectively.
Got it. So if I'm correct to say, if I ask tomorrow morning, Kartik, tell me how much does an image cost for this XYZ customer, will be very easily be able to figure out. Correct. Or
Correct.
images
I mean,
talk.
we don't track it per customer, but we track the cost of processing an image, right? So so that would be on the tips of everybody's hand. What's the cost of processing a video? What's the cost of processing a 360 spin, etc.
Wow, that's really amazing. I think this would be something that I would love to see as a dashboard, right? What is actually it is costing us versus what we are selling. Because I think more and more we go into this experiential phase, right? Hey, there's so many new bets to be taken and everything. And it is so difficult to measure, is this bet really useful or not? Right. So yes, this is great. Cool. I've got another question. So has it also helped you to better pricing for your customers? Like you told me, right? A customer comes, a really large enterprise says, hey, I'm very happy to do multi-year contract, but I'll not pay this X dollar. I want to pay this X divided by 50%, right? I want a 50% discount on it. So has it helped you make better pricing decisions, understanding your cloud cost and the visibility part? Or do you think, no, sometimes go to market actually takes precedence, right? So how does it work, right? Keen to understand.
See, your pricing is always going to be defined by the market, right? So that should always be the input, but the cloud cost sort of becomes the guardrails to it. Right? So in any business, your cost of goods should actually not dictate your prices. Your market, what you can actually charge to the market should actually define your pricing, and your cost of goods always remain the guardrails around it, right? So and that's the same for SaaS as well.
Got it. So basically you use cloud cost as a guardrail because you understand what it takes to process an image and everything.
Correct.
And then it acts like a denominator to your pricing, right? Okay, we understand, but we cannot go below this because this is what is our cost of operating. Great. Yeah. Exactly. That makes a lot of sense. Great. Now, hottest question, right? Since everybody talks about AI, I love to talk about AI, right? What is I think before a question, I'll give you precursor, right? A lot of people have started talking about AI for FinOps, FinOps for AI, and everything.
Mhm.
And at this point, I'm not very sure what it looks like. Is it cost per token? Is it cost per processing? Is it cost per automation, cost per agentic workflow, whatever it is, right? Cost per prompt. I don't know. But what do you think the future would look like, right? When I would start to think about AI cost optimization or AI cloud cost optimization, either ways we can interchangeably use, but like, how do you think about it? Like, what's your point of view?
Got it. So, so there are a lot of thoughts that come to my mind, but let me maybe pick the topmost one, and let's deep dive a little bit into that, right? So, I think as technology and AI is sort of advancing, there are two clear sort of things that we see. One is the models are becoming better and at the same time smaller, right? So, for example, DeepSeek actually was able to bring down that entire ecosystem and bring a lot of smaller models into the market. And the same thing is also happening in computer vision, where people are continuously sort of exploring and evaluating how can we bring the same level of efficiency in smaller models. And at the same time, the devices are actually getting much, much, much better. So I think one trend that we would clearly see is that a lot of the compute would actually move towards edge, right? That could mean computing on your mobile phones. It could mean computing on some other systems if you're working in some enterprise sort of softwares, right? But I think investing in optimizing your own models and actually trying to deploy them on edge is going to be a big thing. And to back it up, actually, this is one of the big bets that we've also taken, and one of the research areas that we are exploring. Now we have a great image processing pipeline. We are able to provide the best quality sort of images. But can we actually bring a lot of those models directly to the consumer's mobile phones, right? Wherein our application is able to, let's say, do 70% of the stuff, then it helps in two ways. It, of course, reduces the cost, but it also dramatically improves the customer experience because everything is happening on the consumer end, and the overall, a lot of the engineering challenges become simpler. You don't need to have those orchestration layers and the queuing layers that I was talking about, right? And the eventual outcome to the consumer could be much faster. So that is one area that I would really a big bet on. Yeah.
No, I think that's great. Like, honestly, I'm hearing edge computing after so many years, right? But like, I have been following, right, where Meta has been talking about doing a lot of edge computing on devices as such in terms of, and I think more than the pipeline or the cost value, I think there's this experience value that will come to customers, right? If I can really edit the image and make it really fast, I think there's a lot of value to it, especially the kind of business we are in. I think experience really takes the precedence. So I think bringing that experience to end customers would be definitely great. So yeah, that's a great insight. Great on that one. So yeah, we are finishing all the serious part. Karthik. From here on, we only talk fun, right? And one of the first thing that I do a session called as cloud confessions, right? In this one, I have a question. Confess a cloud cost sin that you have committed or seen, and you can go as wide as, right? And tell me why it happened and how did you fix it and how did you realize? I think important thing is what was the moment of realization, that oh shit moment, and then how did you fix
Mhm.
it? Yeah.
Got it. So this is something that actually recently happened. Or rather, we recently uncovered. So what was happening is we deal with a lot of media, right? So we're storing a lot of media and we are accessing those medias through our codes, and we've broken down our services into microservices as well.
Yeah.
But somehow nobody noticed, and we were actually accessing these media files over HTTP, which means that we were not calling and accessing these media files within the VPC, and essentially getting charged over the internet prices for a lot of the media access. And for a company like us, that's a sin. I think it never really occurred to anybody initially because most of the access in other companies is not as media heavy. The amount of media that they store is negligible.
Yeah.
How we were able to uncover it is, again, we were trying to optimize our cost. We were going deeper into our cost and seeing that media costs just continue to sort of increase, and especially the transfer cost. And when we
Wow.
actually kept going deeper and deeper and deeper, we looked at it, and I don't remember who it was, but somebody in the team said, "Is it possible that we are probably accessing this media over the internet?" Initially, everybody was like, I'm sure this is not happening, but then we spent a couple of days, or we tried to experiment, and then boom, our cost went way down. So I would say that that was a big sin that we were doing.
Yeah, I think this data transfer cost is such a sneaky thing, right? It is always there. Everybody tries to figure out why it is happening, where it is happening. And I think you are not the only one with this thing, right? I worked with a MarTech company that had a very similar problem. And what they were doing, their JavaScript snippet get used to call. And it was straight a hot link from S3 bucket. They did not have a cloud front or a caching in front of it. And they were bombarded with massive amount of bill. And when I looked at it, I was like, why are S3 URLs getting called over the internet and with every 5 seconds? And then we realized, oh God, okay, this is a problem. So I think it does happen. I think it is one of those things, right? You want to fix it and you think like, oh, let me do it for testing now, and it goes to production, right? Great. No, this is something very interesting for us to learn. Great. I will take you to rapid fire round, right? I'll ask you 5 rapid fire questions. You can say one word. One word is great, but if you want to make it a phrase, I'm very happy. Right. One word for multi-cloud.
It's a headache.
Should I ask why? You will say it's one word, but yeah, I would ask why. Like, why? Why do you feel it's headache?
I mean, just managing the entire multi-cloud becomes a headache, especially in a ecosystem like ours where we're trying to sort of launch so many new features, right? And our DevOps team is already sort of busy with optimizing all the stuff that we've already talked about. I think that becomes a headache. I think probably the right time to do it would be when we become a little more stable. We have a lot of the things that we've already and that we want to build already built in, and then we try and optimize on multi-cloud. But for now, at least, it's a headache for us.
Tagging. You talked about it. What is tagging for you?
Tagging it's a necessity and salvation.
Oh wow. That's a new one to hear. Necessity and salvation both together. Wow, that is great. Most overrated FinOps buzzword that you keep on hearing.
You'll hate me for it, but I think cloud cost optimization. I think everybody talks about it, but there's much talk and a lot of time less action there.
Oh yeah, I would totally agree with you, right? Like we talk about so much, right? And I feel in some places it is like agile, right? Everyone says that, oh, we have this agile model, but everyone's agile model is just different, right? So yeah, totally agree. FinOps tooling, build versus buy.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anything which is not core to our business, I would start with a buy. And if at some point we believe that we can do it in 3 or 4x optimize cost or in a better manner only, then we would try and sort of build it. And that's a sort of philosophy that we would like to have, because otherwise you just defocus from building things that are absolutely core to your business.
Yeah, and it's not core, right? You are not in a business of cloud cost optimization. You're in business
Absolutely.
of image optimization. So I would let you focus on that. Great. And you have to finish the sentence. Cloud bills are getting
Fat and heavy.
Oh, wow. Okay. A lot of adjectives right over there. Thank you, Kartik. It was great having you on this show, right? And I think our fellow engineering leaders or fellow DevOps leader would have a lot of things to learn, especially the model around how you have built in visibility and cloud cost control and the ownership within the engineering team. And this was really insightful. So thank you, Kartik, once again for coming on the show. It was great to have you. Yeah.
Thank you, Praneet. Thank you. It was my pleasure being here.
Thank you. And for all our listeners, right, we'll be back again in 2 weeks with few more surprises for you. And I hope you like this episode. Please share and subscribe. Send it to all the people. And if you want to find more, search for Kartik Gupta. He's right over there on LinkedIn. And we'll also drop his LinkedIn link on there. And you can ask him all the questions, how he has made this magical world of cloud cost optimization engineering working together every day. And I think that's truly remarkable. So thank you, Kartik, once again, and we wish you a good day.